Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to look at the Dragon games. Now it's important to note that this game will be launching on Kickstarter on or around June 28th of 2014. This makes everything that you see here subject to change. So with that being said, the Dragon games is a trick-taking card game. Now I know what you're saying, there's a lot of them out there. You've got clubs, you've got spades, what have you. Well, what makes this trick-taking game pretty unique is that there's actually a physical game board, which I'll show you in a little bit. And you'll also have some dice and some action cards and some other things. And of course, there's dragons. So with that being said, let's take a brief look at what this game has to offer. Okay, now here's a brief snapshot of the components. Again, keep in the back of your mind that this is a prototype, so this may not fully reflect the final product. You've got one game board here, and as you can see, it's made up of many different colored spaces. And these spaces match the 7 different suits that are in the deck. You've got the black suit, the yellow, green, white, purple, blue, and red suit. And as you can see, they're all dragon themed, very colorful, and for a prototype, I was very impressed by the art here. But getting back to these cards, they're numbered 1 through 7, and some suits or some colors here even have duplicates of said number. And that plays a little bit into the odds factor, which I'll get into a little bit later. You've also got 2 gold cards over here, gold dragons, and they serve as your quote-unquote trump cards. For those of you that don't know what tricks are, or trump cards are, or haven't played trick-taking card games before, that's okay. I'll get into that a little bit later, but these, just for lack of a better term, are jokers. You've got an action deck here. Players can collect these and play these throughout the game to perform special actions. You've got these character pawns, and to sum these up, each player will get one of these. They'll start on the start space and move along the board here trying to get to the end space in order to win the game. You've also got 4 dice, and there are different colors on the faces, again reflecting the 7 different suits in the game. You've also got these this box holder here, and these dividers that go into the box, and again I'll explain their purpose in a little bit. To set up the game, each player will choose a character pawn and place it on the start space. After that, you'll need to prep the cards. To do that, you'll take each individual suit deck and shuffle it up individually. After you do that, you'll go ahead and separate them out into this box and use the dividers. So you've got the gold dragon cards here, you've got the mud dragon cards, fire dragon cards, grass dragon, sea dragon, ice dragon, night dragon, stone dragon, and finally just your standard dragon cards. Again, these are your action cards that players can collect and play throughout the game to perform actions. But once you have each suit separated out and shuffled up and separated out here into this little box, you'll go ahead and pull so many from each suit. The manual will tell you how many to pull from each suit and combine them into one large playing deck. So just to show you an example, you've got your gold dragon cards here, again your jokers. You've got your fire dragon, night dragon, ice dragons, and so on and so forth. You'll go ahead and shuffle these cards up, and this will serve as your playing deck. The game itself is played out over a series of turns, and on a turn, one player will become the active player, and then on the next turn, the next player in line clockwise will become the active player, and on the next turn, the next player will become the active player, and so on and so forth around the table. Now, on a player turn, there are 7 different steps to observe, and for the sake of expediency and time, I'll just outline them here, and then briefly go over each step in turn. You'll shuffle and deal on your turn, then roll the dice, choose trump, reinforce trump, play the hand, move the champions, and draw dragon cards. Now let's say, for the sake of argument, that this player over here is the active player. Also keep in the back of your mind that this is just an example. This is not actual gameplay. So the first thing that this player will do on their turn is shuffle and deal. That is step 1. And what you'll do is you'll shuffle this deck over here and then deal 7 cards to each player. Now the second step of the active player's turn involves them rolling the 4 dice. And again, just for example purposes, I've already done so and chosen values that will help to explain the rest of this particular turn. The third step to the active player's turn is to choose trump. And again, I don't know how many of you have played trick-taking card games before, But to really briefly sum up what trump is, basically the trump is the color that actually matters during this particular turn. So this player is going to want to look at the board and look at the cards in their hand to see what they have the most of, or possibly even the highest value of. In this case, you've got 3 Mud Dragon cards in this player's hands, and he even has a Gold Dragon, which is a wild card. So because he has a lot of Mud Dragon, and because there are two dice on the table that have the Mud Dragon icon, he'll go ahead and choose the Mud Dragon as the trump color for this particular turn. The 4th step of the active player's turn is to reinforce trump. And what that means is for every matching icon on these dice of the trump color chosen, in this case this player chose the Mud Dragon, and there are 2 dice here that match that color. So what he'll get to do is reinforce trump by choosing 2 cards from his hand to place back into the playing deck. And then he'll take 2 cards of that color. It's 1 card per dice match, and place that into his hand. So he's reinforced his hand with 2 Mud Dragons to use for the later part of the turn. Now it's worth quickly noting that the rules do change slightly from this point depending on how many people are playing. In a 2-player game, for example, the other player would also reinforce trump by using the same process. In a 3 or more player game, only the active player will reinforce trump. The 5th part of the active player's turn is to play out the hand. What they'll do is they'll choose a card from their hand, or they'll be leading, and they'll place that into the center of the table. So in this case, he'll go ahead and play the Mud Dragon again. This was the trump color chosen. So now the other players have to play 1 card as well in clockwise order. Again, this is just for example purposes. This is an actual gameplay. So let's just say that this player chooses this one. Now they have to play the matching color if possible. If not, they'll just simply choose another color. All that really matters, however, in this case is the Mud Dragon. Again, that is trump. And then finally this player will choose one. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a Mud Dragon, so he'll just have to play any card. Now what they'll do at this point, once everyone has played 1 card, they'll look at the cards to see who wins the trick. And to win the trick, you just simply look at the numbers of the trump color, and whoever has the highest number will win the trick. And when you win the trick, you get all of these cards to place into your own personal temporary score pile. Now we're back to the active player again. The active player will go ahead and choose another card to place into the center of the table. And again, the other players will follow suit, playing their own cards. And again, players will be winning tricks based off of who had the highest number of that trump color. And this will continue until all players have run out of cards. The 6th step of the active player's turn is to move the champions, and this will vary depending on a number of different factors. For example, in a 5 to 7 player card game, the active player can actually choose a partner, and that will actually influence who moves and who doesn't move on that particular turn. Now what the active player will do to determine if he moves is to look at how many tricks he's won. What they'll do is they'll take a look at the manual and see how many people are playing and compare that number to how many tricks are required to move. In a 3-player game, you have to win 4 tricks. In this case, 6 tricks have been won by the active player. So what he'll get to do is he'll get to move up to the next trump-colored space. Let's just say he's blue. He'll move up to the brown one, and then plus 1 extra space for each trick won past the requirement. He won 6 tricks. He only needed 4, so he won an extra 2. So he gets to move an extra 2 spaces. So he'll move up to this white space up here. Now it's very possible that the active player won't be moving at all. Let's just say, as an example, that he's only won 3 tricks and the other players have won some tricks. Let's say this player won 2 and whatever the case may be. Again, this is an example. In this case, the active player did not meet the trick requirement. He has 3, he needed 4. In this case, the opponents will move 1 space for each trick required that wasn't met. So in this case, 4 minus 3, he needed 4, he only won 3. 4 minus 3 is 1. So each opponent will get to move 1 space ahead. Finally, we reach step 7, or draw dragon cards. Any player that has landed on a dragon space, let's just say he's here, whatever. There are different dragon spaces on the board. If you happen to land on one at this point, what you'll do is you'll go ahead and draw a dragon card from the deck. And again, they do a number of different things, and the manual was kind enough to sort of outline them here. You've got this free roll card, which basically allows you to reinforce trump. No partner card. Basically, you play this on another player's turn, and that prevents them from having a partner. Safety card, so on and so forth. So as you can see, there are different cards in the deck that allow players to do different actions, and they can play these whenever they want to, depending on the card type in question. Now, once the turn is over, everyone will take the tricks that they've won and just put them into a pile like so, and then place that pile back into the playing deck. Now, then a new player will become the active player and then begin the process all over again, starting from step 1. They'll shuffle this deck up and then deal 7 cards to each player, and so on and so forth. And throughout the game, more and more cards from this separated deck or box of suits here will be added to the playing deck. And that does change the odds up a bit. As you can see on the board here, some colors are more abundant than others. You've only got 4 red spaces here. There's actually another one here and another one here. These are dragon spaces. But as you can see, there's only a few dragon or red spaces as opposed to, say, green or the mud dragon. So depending on the trump color chosen and depending on how many cards enter the deck, the odds will always be changing, and it's something that will keep the game fresh every time you play. And that's all there is to it. Players will continue taking turns until one player has reached the end space. Now, I know I didn't cover all of the rules found in the manual, but hopefully this gives you a nice overview as far as how the game is played and whether or not you want to support it. Speaking of which, the game will be available on Kickstarter on or around June 28th of 2014, so you can keep an eye out for that. I'll have links in the below description. You can also check out my written preview at www.dadsgamingaddiction.com. This is Vince, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.